Thank you, Steve. I appreciate all those nice things that I gave you to say, and so thanks for doing it. I'm so happy to be here with everybody tonight, and thank you so much for taking your time. It's a little mind-boggling to think that, for some of you, it's 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. I don't know if you just got up or if you're staying up late, but I certainly gives me a whole new sense of responsibility for the evening. I know how deeply important mindset is in every corner of our lives. And, I remember, I studied John Maxwell years ago, and I remember him saying that your attitude is the librarian of your past, the speaker of your present, and the prophet of your future. And that's your attitude. And you can do a lot of research and find out that there have been many, many studies done that demonstrate that 85% of success comes from attitude. Now, I know this webinar is about mindset. So why am I talking about attitude? Well, because mindset is the big daddy of attitude. It's the governor of attitude. It dictates your attitude. And it is absolutely more important than skill. Your mindset is what determines how you perceive things, right? How you engage in things, whether you see things as possible or impossible, whether you perceive life as abundant or scarce, or whether you think the glass is half empty or half full, or like in my case, many years of my life, do I even have a glass? And so, tonight, this topic is so important that I'm going to squeeze as much as I can here in probably 45 minutes to an hour for you. But really, people spend thousands of dollars and entire weekends and entire weeks on trying to get this right, on trying to get their mindset right, because it is the most important thing that you can do. And, everything that I teach is oriented towards the long term. I'm also, I'm a big fan of teaching things that are applicable for whole life, because I don't believe you can separate it. And I don't believe that you can be one way in your work and one way in your real life. I think you have to be integral, right? You have to have integrity in all components, and you are everywhere you are. And so these ideas and concepts tonight will serve you everywhere, but obviously they're oriented towards building your network marketing business. There are just few things that are as valuable as long-term success in network marketing. And I mean truly valuable, and you'll see what I mean in a bit, but that means it's not going to be easy, right? The things that you value most in your life, they weren't easy. They didn't come easy. Your best relationships, the things that you achieved, they were not easy for you. That's why they're so valuable. And this is incredibly valuable. And mindset is the key in making that happen and making that possible. I once heard it said that you can't exercise a bad diet. I always thought I could for a long time. Then as I got older, I realized, that's true. I can't do that. Well, you really can't outwork a bad mindset. It will come back to bite you if you don't work on it. And so tonight, you're going to learn the power of mindset as it relates to the value of what you're doing. And there is immense value in it. You may, after the first part of this webinar, see what you are doing in your work here entirely differently from the perspective of the value that you're not just getting for yourself, but that you're bringing to others. And then we're going to talk about the 3 main blocks. And these are blocks that most people deal with. And then, why they're not real. I mean, we're going to expose them as not actually real. They're just stories. They're lies in a sense. And then I'm going to give you some mindset hacks. And I use that word hacks because it's kind of the cool word to use these days, but some mindset hacks for getting past them. So first, let's jump in and talk about the value. This is a two-sided journey that you are on, and it's really, really important to understand that. The first part of the journey is the achievement journey, right? That's going after your goal. That's the thing. That's really what got you involved. That's that surface thing initially that draws people into the industry, whether it's the need for more money or to get out of debt, or to give better opportunities for their family, or maybe they're just looking for a different way, whatever it is. But it is the accomplishment, the goal-oriented thing, or I call it the work itself, okay? That's the work itself. And part of the value of the work itself is that it does help you to become more as you do it, right? Because the experience of the work grows you. But make no mistake, this second journey, the journey of becoming, the journey of your growth, which I call the work on self, this is unbelievable. And I'm gonna dig into both of these, but to me, this is the biggest value because it's permanent. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But what the becoming part of your journey does is that it multiplies your ability to achieve. When you talk to people who have been in this industry for a long time and who've accomplished something, you know, what you see when you spend time with those people, especially if they're people that have really spent some time cultivating and digging and working, is that they have become an entirely different version of themselves, and their ability to do the business has grown dramatically. It's so much easier for them to actually engage in it. But you know, it's important to understand why the becoming part is so important, because too often, right, people are so focused on the achieve part, they forget the importance of the become part. And, you know, it's a fact that money only makes you more of what you already are. And, you know, I've seen many times in my career where fast success was devastating for someone. And I know some of you are thinking, hey, I'd like that devastation. Give me that problem, right? That's usually not most people's issue, is fast success. But it happens. You know, I can remember distinctly many, many years ago, a young man I recruited, that it took me 3.5 years to recruit this guy. And I worked the process that I teach, and every 6 months I reached back out to him. And finally he said yes. And he went like a rocket. I mean, literally 6 months, he exploded, and we worked together very hard, and he was doing incredible things and on his way to accomplishing everything he ever wanted. And then he just completely self-destructed, completely blew up and was gone. And for no apparent reason. I mean, the apparent reason actually ultimately was he wasn't ready. He hadn't become more. He was still struggling with all his internal demons. And that's why you see so often in other parts of society, people who accomplish things at a young age. You see it with athletes, or sometimes you see it with actors, or sometimes you see it with someone who starts a tech company or something, and they had this explosive success, and they haven't become the person who can handle that. And it makes them more what they already are, and usually that magnifies weaknesses at that point. And so ironically, the harder the journey, the better it is for you. And I know no one likes to hear that, but it's true. And I certainly know that I'm a testament to that. And so, you know, this quote by Steve Jobs captures the essence of why this is so important. You know, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of other people's opinion drown out your own inner voice. How much have we all done that over our lives and early in our careers? And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. And so that is a terrific backdrop for what we're going to cover tonight. But I'm going to start to break down these two journeys for you. So first, let's start with the achieve journey, because it really is pretty awesome what you can achieve here. If you think about it, nothing conditions us for what's possible here in our upbringing, which I'll touch a little bit later as well. But again, I'm always about the long run. Everything I teach is about the long run. And so achievement the right way means you're building your business with kindness and honesty and respect, and you're serving others and you're making a difference. And that is a huge thing, right? That makes your success very sweet. But, you know, let me give you an insight to the mindset that I approach this work with. And it took me a while to get here, but it's why I freely share what I can, because it can help make a difference for you. But, you know, everywhere around you, your circle of influence and anyone you could touch, people struggle, right? They're struggling with things that your products can help, your service can help, and obviously your opportunity. 95% of the people could use an opportunity, right? They truly need that. And so I look at it like this. Think about you standing on the deck of a ship in the middle of the ocean, right? You're in the middle of the ocean, and maybe it's a cruise ship. Maybe you want a trip, right? And so you're on top of the deck of this ship, and down below you, 50, 100 feet below you in the water, as far as you can see, is everyone that you've ever met, everyone you've ever touched in your whole life. And then beyond is everybody else. And next to you is a huge stack of life preservers. What would you do? you'd probably start chucking the life preservers because everybody out there is drowning, right? And so if you think about this, what do you do if people don't grab the life preserver, and what do you do if they do, right? If they don't grab the life preserver, you can't do more than that. You've offered this incredible gift. If they do, what happens? You pull them in. This is a really important part, because often in the work, this is a mindset hack right here. In the work, you know, often people think, oh, you're trying to get something from me. Or you might even be perceiving, they're going to think I'm trying to get something from them, right? You know, I want them to sign up in my opportunity. I want them to buy my product. You know, the reality is a product, an opportunity, that's all great. But the biggest thing they get is you, right? Where else do they get that? Where else do they get someone who will link arms with them, literally pull them out of their circumstance if they're willing? That is a special gift that you are giving. And so when I walk you through this achievement concept here, which, you know, this mindset drives doing this work, it's important to understand that this is what's happening for you, but it's also what you're giving others. I mean, this is an incredible gift. And so think about first, it's, you know, residual income, right? That's the carrot, right? That's what people want to accomplish. And, you know, what does it normally take for an everyday person to accomplish residual income? They work their whole life and get a pension, right? That's residual income, right? Residual income isn't taught. It's not a concept we grow up around. It's a fairy tale for most people, right? And then you see people that achieve it. What does it take for them to achieve it in general? It takes enormous amounts of capital. It takes incredibly successful projects, right? Someone makes an album and it sells tons, or they write a book and it sells tons, but that takes a lot of work, right? A lot of betting on themselves, or people invest, you know, significant amounts of capital in real estate or things like that to create residual income. But you're giving people the opportunity to do that with literally no financial skin in the game for the most part, right? Just be able to take their effort and teach them a way to do this. But that's even on the surface, because what does residual income really mean? It's not just the money. It's about choices, right? It gives people choices. It removes limitations from families, right? What does an extra $300 to $500 in residual income do for a family? I mean, that's a significant thing, right? Now you start going a little higher, right? I know many of you, if you're on a webinar at night, you're more, you know, you're serious about building something significant or making some sort of change. And so you're thinking bigger, but I'm just giving you that perspective that is a significant thing you've done for someone, you know, because it means they have the opportunity, just like you, to make more choices in their life. And that also then leads to more opportunities for their children, more opportunities for them to experience things in life, more opportunities for them to explore what they really want to do, right? More opportunities to serve causes, and which then is part of the whole time freedom thing, right? That's the ultimate thing. The ultimate is to be able to create that ongoing income stream, so that you can invest your life in what truly matters. And I know that what I'm about to say in some circles won't be popular, but I'm a guy who tells the truth. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I just tell the truth. Most people really don't care about being the super duper top person in a company. There are some people that do, and that's awesome. But most people, building the business, right? Building a network marketing business is a means to an end for them. It's not the end, right? It's the thing that's going to allow them to do the thing, right? Whatever that thing is. And that is hugely important. Also, the time component for families. I mean, you know, just think about someone who, you know, makes a decent living, who would be able to replace that income and be doing that from home. Not even make more, but be able to make the same money they make in a job, but make it at home and be around their family more. What is that worth? So there's so much that comes from this little trail. And then obviously that the other, to me, this is the big fruit. These last two are the big fruit and impacting lives. I can tell you, as someone who's been blessed to have received, you know, lots of big checks in my career, no amount of money you will ever receive is more lasting than the impact of having someone look you in the eye with tears in their eye, their lip quivering as they tell you the difference that you've made in their life just because you were willing. You had the courage to chuck them the life preserver and pull them out. You know, people are going to do the work. You're not going to do the work for someone, but you're the catalyst, right? You're the encourager. You're the one that's walking hands with them. You're doing what no one else is doing in their life. This is powerful because when you impact a life, you're not impacting one life. You're impacting every life that life touches, right? The ripple goes endlessly. You can't see it. That's how far it goes. That's some powerful stuff. That's what you're doing, right? And then the joy and fulfillment for you. You know, deep human desires are to feel like we matter, right? To feel like we're making a difference. And to feel like your work and the steps you take are truly meaningful, man, that's an awesome way to live. It's an awesome way to live. This is what the achievement piece actually is. But we have to have the mindset to do it. You know, Og Mandino said, I'll build my castle one brick at a time, right? And that it's small attempts repeated. That's what our work is, small attempts repeated. And so those bricks, right? Those bricks are each person we talk to, each person, each life preserver that we throw. And, you know, mindset drives that. That's the only thing separating us from accomplishing is mindset. That's the nature of it. And so while achieve is awesome, I mean, this is some awesome stuff. To me, this is the little stuff. It's the next one this is the mega one, right? The becoming part. This is the gift that keeps on giving for everyone, because when you achieve something, it's temporary. Now, granted, you know, you could have a long career in your company, right? You could be in your company the rest of your life. That's awesome. I hope that's the case for you. But still, when you achieve anything, you achieve a rank, you achieve a high check, you've accomplished that goal. Once you accomplish that goal, well, okay, now what? Now what, right? I did that. Now what? But man, what you become in the process, this is the ultimate, because this is permanent. This is a permanent state of being. It's a whole new version of you who can make a bigger impact. And so it's sort of like when you climb that mountain of accomplishment, because of who you become, you'll be done with that, but you'll know that you can now assert yourself in a new way, right? To whatever it is, right? This is how people begin to make substantial differences in the world. And, you know, maybe this is a little big picture for you. I hope it is. I hope it is big picture, because part of who you become it's making you better in every corner of your life. And people that I coach and train and have mentored and worked with over the years, I mean, so many of them who use network marketing and working together to build a business, but they went on to do other magnificent things because that's what really was in their heart to do. And this became the vehicle to make that happen. And the person they became understanding of their capability of making that happen. Man, that is, you know, just there's a young man that I mentored for a few years, and now he owns an extremely successful, you know, growing small tech company. He never would have gone down that path, but because of the skills in his development, he felt a calling to do it, and he could. And he's told me time and again, all I did was use the stuff you taught me to do the same thing over here because I knew I could, right? Or recently, I had another dear friend who, you know, his income has almost doubled in a couple of years in his job from who he's become. That's the power of this. The people that you work with, they'll do better in their business. They'll do better in their jobs. They'll do better in their relationships. Their entire life is going to get better. And so how does that happen, right? I mean, that's the point. How does it happen? So here comes the real gravy of our work. You become a greater version of you. Right? I think it was Gandhi who said the difference between what we do and what we are capable of doing would suffice to solve all the world's problems. Wow, that's a pretty incredible thing to say, but isn't it true? I mean, none of us understand how capable we are, right? We've not been cultured that way. And so the more we understand, the better we can be. But I'm going to give you really kind of a little pathway here of how you become a greater version of you. One of the things you get is the development of interpersonal skills. If you think about people skills, they are the single most important thing you can possibly have. You're not in a business of selling products. You're not in a business of you know, recruiting business builders. Yeah, that's the part of the work. But you're in a people business. That's what it is. All businesses are about people. And if you think about traditional workplaces, and you know, Steve alluded, I've trained a lot of leadership in a lot of companies. The people with the best people skills, they're the ones that all the technically proficient people work for. But why? Because they have the people skills, right? People skills rule the world. And yet, no one gets taught these. They're only from experience, right? They only come from how we grow up. They're not taught in our school systems. I have an MBA. Nowhere did I have to learn how to really listen to someone, how to express empathy, how to, nowhere, right? You had to do that on your own. This business teaches these skills, which automatically improves every state of relationship, including work. Then you have the life skills piece, things like learning how to make better decisions and solve problems and plan and prioritize. But, the one I love to talk about here is time, right? Your most precious resource. Most people have no idea how to use it right? But this work helps you become more efficient, more productive, more effective with the time. That is a gift of incredible value. That's an incredible skill. I mean, so much more opens up. And then you also have the professional skills that you develop, things like team building and goal setting and vision casting, but probably the biggest one, and you're all doing it right now or on your way to it, is leadership. There's an incredible dearth of true leadership, right? Because true leaders are about helping others grow. That's what true leadership is, growing people, right? I mean, that's what it is. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff involved, but man, you learn how to lead, right? You learn how to lead the right way. What a difference you can make when you start to do that. So these skills then breed what? Confidence. When you start to think about confidence, and I know I'm not alone in this, but I'll bet if you look back in your life, there were a lot of really cool things you could have done that you didn't because you didn't feel confident to do them, or things that you started and stopped because you didn't feel confident to do it. Imagine, right? Imagine what your life gets like when all of a sudden you're confident. When all of a sudden you're confident, you don't have a lid. Suddenly, whatever you decide to do, you just know, okay, I'm just going to have to do it. I'm just going to have to walk through it because I've done this and I've done that. This is a powerful thing, which then leads to influence. Another thing that's kind of a misnomer in our work is sometimes people think, if I get involved in network marketing, my status is kind of going to go down. Because some people are going to think, I'm a little weird, or, it's one of those things, which is just ignorance, by the way, but that's not on you. But it's actually the opposite, because most people who don't like network marketing, you know why they don't like it? Because they tried it and didn't stick with it. And then they're going to blame it. And maybe they got into a bad thing. That happens before. But then they never did it again. And they said, that's a bad thing. That doesn't make any sense. That's like going out to a restaurant and having a bad meal and never going to a restaurant again. I mean, come on. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I digressed a little bit there. What happens here is that, there'll be some people that will, look down their nose at you a little bit. I feel bad for them. They're limited. But as you continue to progress and you stay at it and you work, oh my gosh, those people have massive respect for you. What happens is over time, your influence grows because people have huge respect, especially and primarily if you work the right way. Kindness, honesty, and respect and serving others. You grow a reputation as the person that people want to be around. Your influence grows and grows and grows. Take it from me. I know. I mean, it's just been the story of my life, starting from literally nowhere, which I'll share in a moment. But, the respect for you around everyone will go up massively, just massively. And then here's another little nugget for you is the example you set. First, the example for yourself, right? Because you are an example for yourself, and you taking the steps and you growing and you becoming and you achieving. That example's for yourself that you can do it. That begins to shift your mindset all by itself. Of course, we're going to be more purposeful. We could talk about peers and family, et cetera, but just children for a second. Think about this for children. I know a lot of people in this industry, right? I've been in it for a long time. This is my 30th year in the industry. And the children of people who do this industry and stay in it are amazing. They're amazing, right? Because they didn't grow up with a lid. They grew up in encouraging, positive environments. They saw their parents work hard at something that was outside of the box. They saw them go for their dreams. Can you imagine what the world would be like if every child had that mindset? Would they were cultured in that if you can be whatever's on your heart to be, because you certainly can, right? Nothing is ever in your heart that's not congruent with who you are. But that's not how children are raised. right? And so the example you set for the people closest to you, that alone, when you get that, you never should stop. I shouldn't use the word should. I just use it on myself. But it doesn't make sense to stop when we think about what it's doing for others. You know, Jim Rohn, this is he's one of my all-time favorites. He said that you can achieve more because you can become more. I think it's really important to understand that sentence in and of itself, because it's not the opposite. He didn't say you can become more because you can achieve more. He said it the other way around, right? And nothing else that I know of does this for people faster. Nothing that I know of does all of this for people. And so when you think about doing your work, this is what you are giving, right? This is the gift that you are giving people. And they're getting you too. That's the favor. That's the blessing. That's the life preserver. It's not just accomplishment. It's this. It's giving them a chance to self-actualize as a human being. It's powerful stuff. And that's why I believe our work is so incredibly noble, because, done the right way, we make a bigger difference on people's lives than any other field I know of. I don't know of anything else that does this in people's lives. So before we go digging a little bit deeper, I want to give you a little bit of a backstory on me. You know, Steve shared quite a few things about, my history, and it would be easy for you to take what you heard and say, well, of course he could build the business. But, let me tell you, I don't look like what I've been through. I didn't come up with that. I took that from a great speaker I saw. But that is true. This is the beginning of my 30th year in the industry. And not all those were easy years, trust me. And I've had an incredible life. I saw everything my children ever did, participated fully in their lives. I've been able to travel the world, and don't really have to worry much about money. I mean, I live the way I want to live and spend time with the people I want to spend time with and pursue the causes I want to pursue. But that didn't come easy. I never, ever would have imagined that this would be what I would do. And so I'm going to give you just a little insight into not my deep story, which takes a long time to tell, but just for those of you that this is your first exposure to me. I am a regular guy. I mean, that's just a truth. I'm not, any smarter than anybody else. I don't have a super high IQ. I'm not more talented than anybody else. And I don't come from anything. I grew up with very little. I was the kind of guy that had to wrap tape around his Chuck Taylor tennis shoes when they had holes in the bottom, so that I didn't have holes in my socks, because I couldn't get another pair of tennis shoes. And so I don't come from that. And then there's a little bit of compounding with that, because I am a deep introvert. I mean, it's hard to tell that now if you don't know me. But I'm still socially awkward. I've had to work on this my whole life. And then when you combine that with the fact that I had very low self-esteem for most of my life and have had to work on that too, that is a really difficult combination for a person. I could add to that, my chemical wiring, my makeup is that, I don't wake up chipper and cheery every day. Half the days I wake up, it's pretty hard for me. That's just who I am. And so I tell you that because you have to understand that when I share this kinds of stuff, I've been where you are in my way, just like you've been in where you are in your way. I barely made it through high school. I don't know how I even ended up in college. I went totally off the rails and was spent a dozen years in a haze of self-medication. And I basically quit everything I ever did up until college. I didn't quit college because that was so much fun, that I didn't want to leave there. But up until that point and for many years after, I quit anything as soon as it got hard, because my perspective was, things don't work out for me. I'm not going to get anywhere. And so when you have that mentality and you have a fear-based mentality, which I did, and I wasn't very ambitious because I didn't grow up with money. It wasn't something I ever thought about very much. It's not a great combination for achievement. And I also grew up in a household with a Depression-era mom. I had really not much time around my father, and he died when I was 18, but really only lived with us a couple of years. And, it was always about what you can't do and what you won't do. And that's not, you're lucky if you have this, right? It wasn't about who you could become. It wasn't encouraging. That wasn't my environment. And I only ended up in this industry because I was in banking and I got laid off twice in a 4-year period. And the second time, I was married and my wife was several months pregnant. And I'll never forget that feeling. And I'm so grateful because it made me go, this is not going to happen again. It's not going to happen. But, I didn't know what I was going to do and ultimately ended up in network marketing. But that wasn't an easy start because I didn't start with any money and I had no business credibility and I had no sales aptitude. So that's not a great combination, right? As a matter of fact, the no sales aptitude one, there was a stretch in between the one bank layoff and the second one where I thought, well, maybe I'll get into, the stock market or insurance or something where people make money. Because I'd started to get exposed to the idea of making money from banking. And I always got past the first couple of interviews because I had an economics degree and I had been in banking. And then I would always get to the sales aptitude test. And that was the end. I'd take the sales aptitude test and they'd say, hey, you're a nice young man. I can still see him saying it now. You're a nice young man, but you're no salesman. And that's true. I'm not a salesman. It's just not, I don't have an affinity for it. I'm not interested in convincing anyone of anything. And I'm certainly not about trying to get someone to do something for me. It's just not how I'm wired. And so when I got started in this business, I had no money and it was really hard even to make a phone call. And, my friends and family were just brutal to me. I mean, absolutely brutal to me. Gandhi said that first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. That wasn't the case for me. They didn't ignore me. They criticized the heck out of me. Then they laughed at me. Then they ignored me, right? They never actually fought me. They didn't care enough to do that. And, I don't care whether anyone thinks I won or not, but, I'm pretty happy with how it all turned out. But anyway, when I got started, it was a very slow start. It was very difficult. But I worked at it despite all that stuff, despite how difficult it was to make a phone call and actually I didn't even realize this at the time. And it was a revelation to me that happened just last year. I was interviewed by Ray Higdon on a national podcast and he said, man, you heard my story. He's like, man, you had every reason why someone doesn't do this, right? Being an introvert and low self-esteem and no money and no sale, don't like sales and everybody being brutal to you. What made you do it? And I said, and this is looking back, I must have wanted freedom more than I wanted someone else's approval. And it's the only thing I can think of because I was willing to work through it. And it was very, very hard. But over time, I started to develop, I started learning what to do and I started doing it and I just did it over and over and over. And then I started to build a big business. And then the company I was with got into trouble and they were called an illegal pyramid on national television. I got to tell you, that's a hard environment to recruit in. I basically lost 80% of my business overnight. And within a few years, I was bankrupt and I had to start all over. So I only tell you that so I've been there, got the t-shirt, went back. But, and then, ultimately I got into another opportunity that fit my value system and became a top earner. And then that kind of led to my mission now is I want to serve and raise the industry. You saw what I shared on the prior slides. If that's all you got from tonight, that could change how you work. But I believe what we do is so incredibly valuable, so amazingly important that I think our reputation should reflect it. I think people should be going, wow, I need to get into network marketing because where else can you get all this? And so I'm just one voice, I'm just one guy, but I'm going to do my part and I'm just going to go and go and go and do as much as I can. And if I help you, that makes me happy. But I want to help raise as much as I can the standard of the industry so that it reflects the true value that it provides. That's what I'm all about. And so that's why I do what I do. J.K. Rowling said, and boy, this is a great person to listen to a quote from, isn't it? Became one of the richest people in her country by writing a book on a napkin. Anything is possible if you've got enough nerve. Now, I probably shouldn't, but I would add to that and desire and the right mindset, because that have to be possible. You can have the nerve. If you don't have the desire, what difference does it make? And if you don't have the mindset, then you're probably not going to do it. And so, everything that I teach you is steeped in experience and truth. And so I'm going to jump now into really the issue. And these are three questions that pretty much everybody struggles with. And even if you find, when I show you these three questions, that you don't struggle with it, I can promise you 90% of the people you work with will. And so it's important for you to have clarity on these. The first one is, am I worthy? Am I worthy of even succeeding? Am I good enough? And can I do it? These are the three things that are just swirling around in people's existence. And they're totally self-belief issues, as Steve touched on that earlier, and they might show up differently, right? They may show up differently in your head. You might voice it a different way, but this is the crux. These are essentially what those are. And when you get to the place where you can say yes to these three, you become completely unstoppable. And that's all it takes, So I'm gonna help you to break these down and kind of give you some ways to work through these and mindset hack them. All right, so. You are worthy. So let's talk about worth. Brian Tracy said that self-esteem is the reputation you have with yourself. And, apparently that's not very good for most people. Statistics say that 85% of the population struggles with low self-esteem. I personally think that number is low because I think some of the people who are surveyed don't want to admit it. But having taught, mentored, trained, coached, worked with thousands and thousands of people, I think it's closer to 95%. That's just my perspective. And that maybe people have some esteem in one area, but in general, their self-esteem is not very high. And the problem with that is that it creates inaction, right? People are not going to be active to pursue something if they don't feel worth it. Right? Because what's the point, right? What's the point? If I'm not worth it, it's certainly not going to work out, right? But that's a lie. That's a false belief. You know what a belief is? A belief is simply a thought you continue to think. That's all it is. It doesn't have to be true, right? If you think about it, for centuries, everybody thought the world was flat. Everybody believed the world was flat. It was a common belief. It's not true, but it was a belief, right? It was a false belief. The world's not flat, and you are definitely worth it. Matter of fact, if you think about it, you're unique, right? You're unique. There's no one else on the planet with your DNA, no one else with your set of affinities, skills, gifts, talents, strengths, right? Your personality traits, your own unique blend. You are one of a kind. You are rare. That makes you what? Priceless. You are priceless, right? I mean, people say, I'm not worth much. Really? What's your arm worth? What's your foot worth? What's your leg worth? What's your heart worth? It's ludicrous that we could think this. Now I'm going to get to why, but if you think about it, what if you could shift it and understand you're priceless? I mean, that's the truth, right? There are people in your life that would say you are priceless, right? Why wouldn't you say that you're priceless? Because we got all this stuff. So how is it that so many priceless people think this way? Well, I'm going to give it to you. The first is because we've been conditioned, right? We have been negatively conditioned. I mean, if you look at it statistically, by the time you are 17 years old, you have heard some form of no, or no you can't, or no you won't, or you're not, or something derogatory and negative 150,000 times on average. Some of you more. You've heard something positive 5,000. That's a little unbalanced, right? You talk about feeding the two little guys on the shoulder. Well, we know which one that's been really pumped up, right? And so, I look at my own childhood. I didn't have any encouragement in my childhood. Fortunately, I had love, and I hope for your sake you had love in your childhood, but you probably didn't have encouragement. You probably didn't have people going, go for what's on your heart. Go for your dreams. Do you realize how good you are at this? Do you realize this ability you have? Do you realize the strength you have? We didn't have that. That's not what people are conditioned to have, right? It makes sense that you should hear no when you're two. When you're trying to stick a fork in a light socket, that's not a good idea. But when it starts to trickle into other things and people say, who do you think you are? You're not going to be this, or you can't do that. Come on, that doesn't mean who should purposely ever do that to a young mind, right? It should be just the opposite, but that is the truth. That is the absolute truth. And then we're put into systems, right, that are conformist by nature, right? They're not systems of exploring our abilities. They're not systems of uncovering our gifts. They are systems of learn this, 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 and this so that you can be this, employable. Yeah, I mean, it's just the truth. I'm just saying it like it is because I'm a product of that, and I had to work at overcoming that, and so do you. And so that's a constant negative environment, a constant negative conditioning, and it's unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate. And then you've got the news, right? That's constant. And so you have all this negative conditioning that's been going on your whole life that's still going on. And what that leads to is it leads to us being very negatively focused and failure focused from our experiences, right? Because since that is the culturing, since that is the perspective, then naturally that's what we're going to build monuments to. We build monuments to our failures in life. I'll bet you could sit down and quickly write down half a dozen things that you remember that were you considered like really big failures, right? I'm sure you could, or things that you messed up, or why? Because we build these monuments, right? We make mountains out of these tiny molehills that really, what are they supposed to be? They're school. Our past and our experience aren't supposed to be a club we beat ourselves with. They're supposed to be an education that we grow from, right? That's a normal thing. They're not supposed to define us. They're supposed to develop us, but we're conditioned the opposite way. And so this is just truth. And if we have to acknowledge truth in order to deal with it, right? We can't just go, we have to go, okay, this is true. This is real. This is what we dealt with. And then we've got to take steps. So we've been reacting to that, and now we have to be proactive, right? So we have to be proactive in how we go about shifting those mindsets. And so the first thing is feeding your mind, right? Because the world will feed your mind all the wrong stuff, right? The world will feed your mind the negative, and it has been forever. So it's up to us proactively to put in the good stuff, right? This is where my change in my life started. And again, because of network marketing, I got exposed to the idea of personal development. And I can still remember going, wait a minute, you mean I can actually work on myself? I can actually learn on purpose? I can actually get better? Really? That's a real thing? And I started pouring myself into books. I started with 15 minutes a day. Now I read. Well, I'm a famous reader. I'm known as the guy at the gym who's always got books in his book bag, right? Because I never stop. I never stop trying to learn, never stop trying to feed my mind, never stop trying to grow. We're only here to grow, right? When you stop growing, well, you know what that means, right? So we have to proactively feed our mind. So that's why in my blueprint process training, I spend so much time in the front of that on mindset stuff. Why? Because it's hugely important. Without it, the rest of the stuff isn't going to happen. You got to get that. You got to get that piece working right. But first, you got to believe you're worth working on, right? You got to believe that. And so you are priceless. Priceless stuff's worth keeping around, right? So you got to understand you're worth working on. So you got to feed your mind. And the other thing you got to do, and now this could be a whole list of stuff. I'm just giving you two little things here, but I have a whole set of stuff that I teach on this area that's important to help you here. But self-talk. Think about this. If you wouldn't say it to someone you love, why in the world would you say it to yourself, right? Because, your subconscious doesn't care who says it. It just takes it in. And when you say, you're so stupid. I can't believe I'm so stupid. I did. Your subconscious goes, you're stupid. Hey, you took, right? It just says what? It's going to take what you feed it. Catch yourself and correct that. I've pretty much eliminated negative self-talk. It took me a long time, but you got to be purposeful. So it's proactively about putting stuff in. And then you got to take certain things out. You got to minimize your negative influences. There's two primary places you can do this right away. One is the news. I'm not saying stick your head in the sand and not know what's going on in the world. What I'm saying is don't dwell on it, right? Because, you're walking around with one of these in your hand, right? You got one of these in your hand. What is this? What's this? What's a cell phone? It's a window to the world, right? You can get every piece of bad news you want in a heartbeat. And man, that's just constant, Listen. Bad stuff has been going on since the beginning of time. It's the nature of man, good and evil. Always going to be, always has been, right? But you're so bombarded with it, it'd be easy to start to think, man, the world's just gone to where in a handbasket, right? That's not true. That's not true. And so I'd say minimize that. I mean, I just don't spend any time on it. I skim the headlines to see what's going on, and I learn the things that are important. But other than that, that's all. Can't control it. Why feed it, right? And then the other thing is people. You've got to insulate yourself from negative people. If people are think about it this way. If someone is not for you, by definition, they're against you. They don't have to be against you on purpose, but if they're not encouraging you and being a positive voice for you, then they're against you. So anyone who's negative in particular, you just need to minimize your influence them. I'm just telling, sometimes you got to fire a few of your friends. You just do, for the sake of your family and the sake of your future. And that's not harsh. It's just true. And so those are a couple things in this little area. Eleanor Roosevelt said that no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And you know what? You shouldn't make yourself feel inferior, right? Don't consent to do that. It's too important to understand that you really are, you're a rare thing. And so that takes us to the next thing, you being good enough. Well, so are you? Are you good enough? Well, I can tell you that you're better than you know, because you spent your life, due to the negative conditionings, pointing out all the stuff you don't like about yourself and not seeing all the cool stuff you have. I mean, you are way better than you know. And I'm going to give you this right now, because this is one of those things that if you take this alone, this will be helpful. Anything that's in your heart to do, you have what it takes to do it, because it wouldn't be there. Your heart is always congruent with who you truly are, not who you think you are. Your head is what will get in the way, which is why we're focusing here on mindset. But your heart, it knows the way. So remember, you only need to take one step at a time. You're good enough to take a step. It doesn't even have to be a good step. It could be a lousy step. It could be an awful phone call, but you can take that phone call, and then you can take another one, and then you can take another one. You can walk your way across the United States if you want. Now, it'll take a long time, but you could do it just one step at a time. And that's really the key. I saw this in Mel Robbins' book not long ago, and it really stuck with me. He said, you know what, if you want to doubt something, doubt your limits, right? I mean, it's that mindset of, you can doubt something, doubt your limits, that you don't really have any. You don't even know what they are. You can keep going, because that's the truth. So you are plenty good enough, but let's talk again about what are the sources of this. A big one is comparison to others, right? And again, society does a great job of this, right? They present, right? They present images in the world of perfection when there is no such thing, but it messes people up, right? It messes them up. But let's just take it right into the business. The super stories do more damage than good, right? Because you don't know the backstory, right? They just tell you the super story that Joe got involved and he went to super duper triple director in 27 hours, and wow, look at Joe. And then everybody's like, what's wrong with me? I'm not like Joe. I can't do it. Look, Joe can do that. It's not even relevant. I mean, you don't know the backstory, first of all, and very rarely do you, which is one of the reasons that drives me crazy. But the reality is, it's not relevant anyway, right? That you're different than Joe, right? You have your own set of circumstances, your own gifts, talents, abilities, affinities, experiences, your own credibility when you start, your own level of talent, right? You're in your own spot with your own world and your own path, right? So it's not relevant. The only thing you ever compare yourself to is you yesterday. All you have to do is work on being a better version of you, and everything else is going to take care of itself over time. Just remember that you are never going to be very good at being anyone else, but you can be a superstar at being yourself. But that brings us to the second one. This one chaps me a little bit, and that's limiting leadership. Leadership in general should be about growing people and developing people and setting them free. But often that leadership is not present in our industry, because people who are in the leadership positions haven't grown or matured or understand enough yet. And so, often they try to put you in a box and try to control you, try to make you think, oh, there's only one way to do this thing, when how could that be? Right? Like, think about this. I'm one of the gifts that I uncovered over the years is my ability to speak in front of groups. I don't use that to build my business, because if I did and someone thought this, and I said, this is how you got to build your business, most people are like, I can't do that. Right. And so, the way to build your business is your way, right? The process is simple. you know, but too often we have people trying to put people in boxes, you know, trying to get them to be what they're not. That doesn't make any sense. That's not how the world works. And then that also feeds this last one, which is misunderstanding the personality types, right? That's fed from the comparison to others and the limiting leadership. You know, if we question our personality type being good, that's a lack of personal development. I mean, that's all that is. Your personality is either a blessing or a curse, depending on your personality. I mean, depending on your personal development. And, you know, I'm a great example. I used to think, oh man, I'm an introvert. How am I going to do this? I wish I was an extrovert, right? Because I didn't understand, right? And then as I grew and developed, I go, oh, okay, I get it. I got this cool set of stuff that I can develop, right? And, you know, your personality is perfect. I have trained and mentored and taught and worked with the Myers-Briggs, the DISC, all kinds of assessments. And here's one thing I can tell you. Every single kind of personality is successful in this industry, every single kind, and in almost equal measure, right? So it's just about you developing what you have. You're plenty good enough. You know, Rumi said you were born with wings. Learn to use them and fly. So, you know, spread your wings, my friends. Spread your wings. So naturally, we have to get to this last one here, and that's, can you do it? And in some ways, to me, this one can sometimes be a little funny when I think about it. And not, you know, because people struggle with it, because that's natural. But if you really think about our work, can you be nice? Can you be honest? Can you be respectful? Can you diligently take steps? Can you talk to someone? Anybody can do that, right? I mean, the work is simple and the steps are actually easy to take. The mindset affects you taking them over the long haul. But, you know, my first year of college, I had to pay for my room and board, and that was quite a room too. And my college, my first year of community college, and by 3 days a week, I went to school 2 days, and 3 days a week, I worked in construction building railroad tie walls. You know, that's the railroad ties, are big chunks of wood that are underneath the tracks, right? And I mean, those things are heavy. We built retaining walls in subdivisions. That was unbelievably hard work, right? I mean, incredibly hard work. That's hard work, right? Is it hard work? I don't know. I mean, is talking to someone hard? Yeah, it can be emotionally a little bit fatiguing, but this is simple, right? This is simple. And the only thing that stops you, that makes it difficult, is mindset. I mean, the steps are if you don't marry the result, and you understand people are going to do what they do, and you just go about your business, you build a business, right? You know, so I'm going to give you my secret. You want to know my secret to my 29 years of success in the industry? I shouldn't say 29 years of success. There was a few years in there that weren't so successful. But the key, simple. Ready? Here's the secret. The secret sauce. 1, I started. And 2, I never stopped. That's it. I refuse to stop. Think about that, right? But even though I just said that, I'm going to shred these here for you quickly anyway. So first, can you do it? Well, why not you? Really, why not you? I mean, after all, you're worthy and you're good enough, right? You've looked across the industry. You've seen people walk across the stage. They don't look the same. Nobody looks the same as anybody else, right? Everybody's different. And so they're not any better than you. They just did the work, right? So, you know, that's the truth. That's the truth in all things, right? So why not you too? I mean, it's the same process. It's the same work, and you've got your own special set of stuff. But you got to know why you want it, because it's going to have a struggle to it. You got 2 monstrous issues. One, you're going to struggle. You have times that are difficult, times that's not seeming to work, or things are being a little harder than they should be, or feel that way, or things are going wrong in your life, right? This stuff happens. But you're also going to be impatient, right? I mean, let's just be real. Human beings aren't patient. And whenever someone says you got to become patient, that's not going to happen. You're not going to be patient. Even when you're crushing it, you're having great growth, you're still going to be impatient. Like, I wish I could have grown more that month. So what you do is you become patiently impatient, right? You just acknowledge, I'm not going to be patient. Okay, I'll be patient with my impatience. That's all you can do. But the point here is you've got to, in order to push through those struggles, you got to have it deep, right? I mean, freedom burned for me. It burned for me. And then once I saw the beauty of the time with the family, that burned for me. And now it burns in me to serve and help people. I mean, that's what drives me. That's what makes me feel great. And that is why when I started this to help and teach and train, you don't think I had other people jumping up and giving me grief? Who do you think you are? Or what do you think you're doing? Oh, you can't do the business, and now you teach. I mean, all kinds of garbage, right? But you got to say, hey, I'm doing it. I'm not going to stop. And you like it or you don't. I mean, that's what you do. So you got to get that driver of why you want it, because you're going to deal with a few things, right? You're going to deal with fears. Let me help you with this. All right. So fears, what do you fear? You fear rejection. You fear someone's opinion. You fear criticism. You fear failure. You know what they are? They're fictions, right? They're things. When you're fearing one of those things, you're fearing something that hasn't even happened yet, right? It hasn't even happened yet. Really? That's a mind blower when you get it. You don't fear rejection in the moment it happens. It just happens. It's right. You don't fear the thing you're going to do when you're doing it, right? You're just doing it, right? And so you want to help with this one? There's an ancient tribal curse that says, may you stay in one place forever. That is the thing to fear, not getting shot down, not taking a step. Right? Fear staying stuck. Fear not accomplishing the thing that you want. Fear not providing the opportunities for your family. Fear not growing as a person to become as tall as you can be and do what's possible for you. That's what to fear. So it's just a matter of shifting it and put your fear to work. Put your fear to work. Fear the other stuff. Don't fear rejection. Who cares? I mean, seriously, when someone rejects you, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting themselves. They're saying no to themselves. They're saying, hey, I don't want the life preserver. I'll just stay in here and drown. Okay, what are you supposed to do? Right? That's not on you. It's just your job to chuck it. Right? Someone criticizes you. I don't like the color of your life preserver. Okay. I don't like the way you throw it. Okay. Oh, I've seen better life preservers than that. All right. Who cares? Who cares? Right? Turn your fears and fear not accomplishing your goal. That will get you out of bed in the morning. And then, this next one, the comfort zone, this is completely driven by fears. If it weren't for the fear thing, we wouldn't have the comfort zone issue, because comfort zone issues are misinterpretation, right? I mean, it's misinterpreting anxiety, right? Making anxiety instead of excitement, right? I mean, it's the same feeling. It's just oriented in a different way, right? We learn this. We learn this over time, when in fact, everything that's ever happened good to you that was growth came through a comfort zone thing. You had to go through the comfort zone to get there. That's where growth is. That's the good stuff. And so we learn to interpret that. I have a rule. I have a rule that I follow. If I am uncomfortable when I think about doing something, I no longer have the option. I just took away the option. If I'm indifferent, then I got the option, because that means I'm not going to grow if I do it. It's just something I could or couldn't do. But if I'm uncomfortable, option's gone. I have to do it. I don't have a choice because you got to grow. So shift that. Next is circumstances. Look, your path is your path. You're going to have your own challenges. I mean, I've been through all kinds of things in my career, not just the hard stuff and growing my business. I've been through the death of people really close to me, extremely serious illness of people close to me, traumatic issues in my family, stuff that's happened to me as a person, right? That's part of life, right? And, you're going to have your own set of challenges, your own set of difficulties. That's just your road. And, and I know when we're going through stuff, we're like, why is this happening to me? Well, I mean, really, would you wish it on someone else? But even more, understand it's shaping you. I'm not saying you have to love it. I'm not saying, and who does, right? The things that have been hard for me in my life, I didn't love it when I went through them. But the more I grew, the more I became, the more I understood this is necessary. This is part of it. This is what I have to have, right? It's like the mentality of commitment is doing the thing you said you would do way, way, way after it felt good doing it, right? I mean, that's the nature of circumstance. That's your path. It's designed to shape you. Flip the mindset and go, oh man, this is making me better. Remember, times of turmoil, that's when you find out who you've become to date, right? That's what happens, right? And that's a cool thing to understand. And then skills. Look, I started with none. That's all I can say. I started with none. You learn by doing, right? This business is simple. It's mathematics. All businesses are mathematics. It's mathematics. It's numbers with heart. That's all it is. Mathematics with heart. Can you be nice? Can you be nice and ask if people are open and help them if they are? Yeah, you could do that, right? That's what your business is. You'll grow the skills. You do it, grow. It's like you can't read about riding a bike. As much as I'd love people to buy my training materials, they can't watch my training materials about riding a bike and go ride one. They got to go ride one and fall down. That's what you have to do. That's how you learn. That's it. Your skills come from doing it. But understand it's all mindset, and until one is committed, there's hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness, right? But the moment we commit, providence moves too. You know why it moves? Because we move it, right? When we commit, we move it. What we say is it doesn't matter that this wall's in the way. We will go under it. We will go over it. We will go through it. We will go around it. We will pole vault it. We will do something, but we're going to get to the other side of this wall. Your mindset is the ship that's going to sail you to where you need to go. But you always have to remember this. Struggle is not a sign that you will not succeed. It is the road to success. It's so, so important. Often people say, I'm struggling, it's not working. No, that means you are working, right? That's part of it. We've been given this messed up view of success. Success is glamorous. Success is glitzy, right? Success is that recognition. Success. No, it's not. It's perfect and polished. No, it's not remotely that. Success is a mess. Success is today. Success is doing it when you don't feel like. Success is each moment. It's right now. It's the sweat pouring off when you're trying to do something, or the tears coming out from frustration. That's what success is. That's the truth. You do that, and at some point you get seen in a certain way. But man, success is right there. Success is what you're doing when nobody sees you, right? The people that you look at in your life or who have accomplished things, you look at them and you see this person, and you're like, wow, look at that's what success looks like. No, success looked like all the stuff they were doing when you didn't see them, right? That when they were on their own and nobody could see what they were doing. You're a success already just because you are doing this. And so here is the secret weapon. This is what mindset unleashes for you. And I mean unleashes it. This is the secret weapon. This is the thing everybody has been gifted with that they don't really think about. It's called will. Not intelligence, not talent, not pedigree. I know a lot of people with great pedigrees that are very smart, very intelligent, very talented, who've accomplished nothing, right? Because it doesn't matter. Everybody has will. And will is this powerful force that's a perfect blend of two things. First, it's persistence. I want you to think about a 5-year-old child who wants a cookie. What will a 5-year-old child do who wants a cookie? They will ask you for a cookie. And when you say no, they will ask you again. And when you say no, they will ask you again. And they will ask you again and again and again and again. And they will ask you until the point where you say, okay, here's the box of cookies. Let me drive to the store and get you a truck of cookies. Let me do whatever I have to do so you have the cookies. The difference is here, you're giving the cookies. You're offering the cookies, right? You want a cookie, you want a cookie, you want a cookie. I mean, that's all. It's just persistence. That 5-year-old's you. You were that 5-year-old. You still are that 5-year-old. We're all blessed with that. It's the survival instinct. We have that already, right? We're built that way. If you didn't have food, trust me, you go get some. You find a way to get some, right? That's what we're built for, right? We just have to call on it, and mindset helps us call on it. And then we take it to the next level, and that's perseverance. That's the long term. That's the endurance. That's persisting and giving that cookie every day, right? That's throwing the life preserver every day, whether we feel like it or not, step by step. And it's really important to understand that a step is progress. That step doesn't always have to be forward. It can be sideways. It can be down. It can be back, right? But you just keep taking your steps. You don't need to see what's past the next step. You just got to take that step. You find a way to take that step, and then you take the next one. I mean, that's all it is. And this blend is what it takes. It's the willingness. That's that word again, will. The willingness to keep pushing through new challenges, not shrink back from them into your comfort zone. That separates the successful from the unsuccessful. Not the talented, not the intelligent. The willingness, the use of the will. Will means I will do it until. That's it. Will means do it until. I'm going to accomplish what I'm after, or I'm going to run out of time on the planet. I mean, that would make it easy, right? If you had your mindset like that, it makes it easy. Then you have no like emotional tie to what happens day in and day out. You just do it and do it and do it and do it. You know, let's face it, life is way too uncertain to settle. Why settle? I mean, for what? For the name of security? There's no such thing as security. There's no security in money. There's no security in anything. Anything can happen at any moment, right? So why not go for what you want? Why not live the life that you want? And the beautiful thing about our work, you never have to stop, right? You never have to stop, right? You can make your ends meet while you're doing your work and building your dream. You never have to stop. And why would you? I mean, you're good enough. You're worth it. You can do it, right? And so really it comes down to you use that mindset, you use that will, you use these hacks that I've given you to do two things. And if you do these two things consistently, you will make success inevitable. One is you got to talk to people. You got to talk to people consistently every day. The people who succeed talk to the most people the most. I mean, that's all. The daily contacts per day help you achieve and become. And then consistent daily personal development and training help you to become and then achieve. It's the perfect blend. I haven't seen it done where these two weren't hand in hand for something long term. You know, I want you to really remember this right here. You are not on the earth just to consume, right? You are here to make the unique contribution that only you can make. There's no one else that can make your contribution. And so to become as much as you can, to play as big as you can, to grow as tall as you can, to explore and develop as much as you possibly can, that's what you're supposed to do. That's how you are going to make an impact. That's how you inspire others. That's how you example. That's how you model. That's how you grow yourself. That's how you impact the people around you. And that's how you impact the world around you. So I sincerely hope that this has been of great value tonight. I tell you, I gave everything I had here in this short little window of time.